Most people don't practice marketing, they practice how they feel about marketing. Sales and marketing are two distinctly different things.
And real estate marketing isn't the shallow end.
Yeah.
It is the deep end. There's billionaires that cruise in these waters using effective marketing to travel with them down the funnel.
And that was the big aha moment for me when we made that shift. You asked the question earlier why everybody isn't on YouTube. It's just because they don't see the path. They don't know how easy it actually is to do the thing and to do it the right way.
I'm going to tell people something that they've been told the opposite of. Go on the internet and meet strangers.
I felt like I walked into Oz and somebody pulled the curtain back right there. I was like, oh, I need to go and implement the strategies that I know will work and do this.
Welcome to the Leads Are Shit. My name is Taylor. I'm a real estate agent from Edmonton, Alberta, in Canada. And I'm talking to like kind of the temperature opposite of myself right now, which is Juan Alcala. You are the team leader of True Living Group in Tampa,
Hmm.
and also somebody that I've got to spend quite a bit of time with on Clubhouse. And the way I see Clubhouse might be the same way that you see it, where it's kind of like a mall that they've closed down, but there's still some kids that skateboard in the food court.
That's fair.
And some of those kids are amazing,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
some of the people that we just hang out with on this social media that really isn't a social media anymore. And you keep the beat. Man, do you ever. How many days has real estate all day been running at like over 200 people in the morning?
God. Oh man, I don't 4.5 years maybe since probably
4.5 years.
October of 2020 ish, somewhere around there. Somewhere around there.
Oh, wow. So that has been such an incredible service to our community, right? Like
Yeah.
just right out of the gate, holy man, to keep the beat like you have and just like keep it moving, that has been exceptional to watch. Both from the standpoint of just that raw endurance, but also the shepherding work. Oh, so good. Like you help that community find its way. Means a
Well,
lot to me.
well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. That what I'll say is this, like many hands make light work, and that that's an old saying, right? And it doesn't belong to me, but there's a lot of truth there. And the without contributions from people like yourself and many other real estate professionals that we've had in there and still currently do have in there, it wouldn't be what it is because it's a heavy lift, man. It can be, very difficult at times. There's been ebbs and flows through that community. But yeah, I mean, at the peak during COVID, we were seeing 500 people come through that room in the morning. Uh,
Hmm.
and for those of you that don't know, we have a community called Real Estate All Day, and we started a 7 a.m. till 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, just conversation from real estate professionals during COVID when everybody needed a place to go hang out. And that quickly grew. And we had a lot of really strong contributors come through there. And I don't want to mention them by name, not to dishonor them, just because there has been people that have come and gone. And they've grown and outgrown the community or have helped the community. We've been able to touch a lot of lives in that respect. So it's been fun. And Taylor's one of those contributors that I've got to learn about too, right? Because at the end of the day, Taylor, for me, I have this strong calling for contribution, and I didn't recognize it till later in life. I wanted to be a teacher when I was younger. I actually went to school to teach. Didn't follow through with that. Didn't finish school. Became an entrepreneur and left, and thought that that was my path. And ironically, everywhere I've ever been, both corporately and in real estate, I've ended up in a seat where I'm teaching at some level. So, Lord works in funny ways, and you're able to circle around. But yeah, man, I enjoy being able to have some small part in other people's victories and also helping them through some challenges. I don't consider myself the reason, but I know that I got on a fence post somehow too. Right.
And I'm glad that we didn't lose you to teaching.
Yeah.
And like what I mean by that is that there's a different role between those teachers that have controlled environment inside of a school system that's highly regulated, and then there are people that are doing it in the wild, right? Like this is kind of in my mind the difference between a teacher and a mentor.
Yeah.
It's and that's something that I'm glad because in our business, there are a lot of people that are trying to sell teaching, and there are very few teachers. Like
Mhm.
there are very few like actual mentors. Most of it are honey traps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's really
Well,
hard to differentiate yourself.
sure. Well, in all fairness, there's more money in education than there is in doing the activity in almost every industry, right? Consultants, I mean, you can take this all the way up to the top. I mean, look what's happening in the United States right now with the unraveling of getting into the weeds of who's paying who and how much money has gone to the consulting. I mean, it's quite clear where the money actually is, right? So when you think about that, it makes sense that people gravitate towards that. But I am a huge proponent of application versus just education. There's a huge difference between those two. Our country specifically, I homeschool my kids as an example. Now, I went to school to be a teacher and then I ended up homeschooling. Now, my wife does 99% of this education. I am the principal at this point. I'm just starting to get into some teaching with my 12-year-old son because now it's time to teach him how to be a man, right? I'm sharing this with you because like there's this idea of like rote memorization and like we go to school to learn things and the system has become so mucked up with as long as you can go and memorize and pass the test, you're quote unquote a great student. And while there is value, some form of value there, um, unfortunately, the things you're pointed in, out in the world towards, usually when you start that journey, are not available to you by the time you get there. And this process has been, it's just accelerating more and more, Taylor. So, for us in my home, and especially with people around me, I want to be in the weeds with people, right? I want like lots of people tell you, the idea of this podcast of like the leisure shit, lots of people tell you how they feel about marketing, but not many people can tell you how marketing actually works. Right. And the reason is because most people don't practice marketing. They practice how they feel about marketing, meaning I tried it. It didn't make sales for me. So therefore marketing doesn't work.
And they also seem to transfer a lot. So they make marketing that is, if you were to judge it by the product, it's marketing that makes them feel good about themselves.
Right.
And that doesn't speak to their clients at all,
Right.
right? Like, look at me. I'm in this fancy house. Look at me. You should look at me. Uh, and I feel as though that's kind of a miss. I want to go back to probably before there was an understanding of this, or maybe even a confidence.
Mhm.
You didn't start in Tampa. Where did you begin?
So I started in the suburbs of Metro Detroit, where I grew up. I was born in California, Air Force brat, moved home. I'm going to call Michigan home when I was 11 months old. So California was nothing more than a pass by for me. I didn't no understanding there, but that's where our family was. And grew up in that area, working class towns, very much so, right? Like blue collar. My grandma worked for GM, and my grandfather worked for Ford. Good luck with that at the end. Buying your first car was an experience, let me tell you, in the family, right? It's like, who do you choose? You know what I mean? Like, because someone's going to be upset at the end of the day. But I'll tell you what, it wasn't. It wasn't a foreign automobile because then you would be disbarred from the family, right? Like, that was the path, man. But like, that's where the area we grew up. So, Rust Belt, working class families doing the thing, just north of Toronto, technically, which is hilarious to say that, but or I'm sorry, of Windsor. So that's real life, right? Like that's part of where I grew up. So there's this really unique balance and eclectic mix, if you will. We had engineers from all over the world who, I, I grew up in a very diverse environment, and it was very helpful in that respect. But yeah, starting in real estate there, got my license in July of 2012. And if anybody remembers that time, that was the absolute bottom. If you point to the Fed chart, that's the that was the last day of crying for people in terms of the worst market in the world, in terms of real estate, and didn't know what I was in for, had no clue, man, and just jumped in. I was recruited by a former employee of mine when I was running restaurants. She kept calling me saying, "Hey, you'd be great at this." I was like, "You do know that the market is upside down, right? Like, why do you keep calling me about this?" And she was getting busy, man. She was like, I started to watch her have some success. She'd come in, work for me in the morning, go sell houses in between, and then go hustle at the bar at night. This girl had drive, dude. And within 2 years, she was like, I'm overwhelmed. I need help. Could you come? And I just kept putting her off, putting her off, putting her off. And then ultimately, I had met my new wife, Kate, who we just celebrated our 12th anniversary. But we had just met and we were getting very serious and found out we were going to have a baby. And I made a promise that I could not keep at that moment, which is I will bring you home if that's what you want. And I was not in financial position to do it. And I got the phone call from Christy again. Hey, I'm really busy. Do you think I want to help with real estate? And that was literally my like, "Hey, are you really making money at this?" She's like, yeah. I'm like, then I'm in. Let's figure it out. All right. So I jumped in there and then a lot of work later.
Okay, so this is
Uh,
a meaningful point in this story that I think some people look past. You were talking about like before teaching your son, it's time to teach him to be a man. And this was a phase I didn't see coming beforehand.
mhm.
But when I was going to have kids, it woke up the lion in me.
That's fair.
Like that provider. I know a lot of people pay attention to how it changes women. You know, they start to become nesters. They start to change things. If they're
Yeah.
not happy in the house that they're in, like, man, talk about a hot client in real estate,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, she wants to move because she doesn't like the neighborhood and they're already pregnant. She's moving. He might not like that or know that, but that's what's going to happen.
Yep.
But I remember when we were in, I think my wife's second trimester with our first daughter, we went to New York and we were standing and waiting to go into The Lion King on Broadway. And the guy behind us was with his family. And since he had kids, he was kind of like, chat with somebody who looks like they're about to have kids. And that's what he said. He said he looked at my wife and he said, "Is your husband a hard worker?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he said, "You haven't seen nothing yet." He's like, "The good ones always go on fire now." And he was right. The next few years, I was a monster. I really did the Jordan Peterson thing where you be a monster first and then kind of craft it back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So now you're at this point where you probably have that same calling inside of you. You see this real estate moment as being forced upon you due to these commitments. What happened next?
So I'm not the agent who's going to sit in front of you guys and tell you that, it was like off to the races. I sold 100 homes and like life was perfect after that because that's just not true. July of 2012, if anybody was selling at that time, you know that everything was a push, right? And especially being in Metro Detroit, we took it as hard as anybody. It was Vegas, Detroit, Florida that were markets that just had their guts ripped out of them, and it was tough. My first home sale was a $36,000 turnkey foreclosure. Literally, they walked in and turned the lights on that bad boy, and it was great. And Taylor, I'll never forget this. It was a young lady. She was 19 years old. She was gonna be a single mom. Her boyfriend or significant other had already walked out of her life, and her dad, who worked for Ford at the time, how much was Ford stock worth at that time? $2. Like
Mm.
his whole life had been flipped upside down in the last 4 years, right? Like can't even imagine how much his 401k was down in his company stock. But he was a assembly line worker in Wayne, Michigan, and he come walking in the house after his daughter. I showed her a few homes, but we finally narrowed it down to this one. Like I even know what I'm doing, by the way. I'm not presenting myself like I did at that point. I was just holding on for dear life, right? But I remember walking in and he looked right at me, and I was like, "Look, man, what you're doing for your daughter is incredible." And I'm not saying that just because trying to win attaboys here. Like I genuinely believe that. And he looked right at me and like with those piercing eyes, and he looked at me and he goes, I may not be the smartest man in the world. He goes, but I know how much it costs to make things.
Mm.
Right. And he goes, I don't know that I'll ever see this again. And I hope I don't, but I don't think I ever will.
Oh.
And it's really worth because I knew he was liquidating his stock. Like he didn't have all that
Hmm.
cash sitting aside. So he bought his daughter this house. And amazing. She still lives there. That home's worth 250 grand or whatever now in Metro Detroit, you know. And it's been a while, don't get me wrong, but like what that's a game changer for somebody's future, especially for your daughter that didn't have any support at that point. So, but it was a foreclosure, man, and like that's how it started. And then I think I sold I know I sold a short sale in November after that. And I remember working my tail end off to make that thing happen where like there was bank negotiations and third parties involved and all kinds of things to make that work. And then I closed 4 deals my first year. And that was it. Didn't do a whole lot of anything. And at this time, I was working full time at a beer wholesaler in Michigan as well. So I was in beer during the day, and I would go sell real estate at night and on the weekends. And then, I climbed the corporate ladder there. I got into business development. I was the guy that flew across the country getting great beer brands to come back to the state of Michigan. I had a really good job. In terms of jobs, it was probably one of the best in the country. You wine and dine the execs at breweries. It's very tough life, right? However, that is not conducive to building a family, as most people can imagine at that point. So, here I am leaving my new wife and my newborns at home while I'm flying around the country eating and drinking every night. That's not going to win hearts over the long run. So,
Tough
uh,
sell.
yeah, right. So it was tough, man. So ultimately, I knew I needed to start to really treat real estate as a profession and learn some lessons that I didn't know yet. And that's what got me going because the first three years was pretty slow. Then I had a great mentor who really just helped me understand. And I think it went to like 15 or 20 deals, and then all of a sudden it was like the 25, and then it was basically at par or outrunning my corporate income. So it was like, okay, we're gonna have to make a decision here sooner or later. So that was the journey up to going to Florida there. But y'all, that was a 7 year endeavor of an agent who was not great, who didn't take the business serious, who I would say I had some wins. I wouldn't call it necessarily a success, but it wasn't until that year 6 and 7 when I replaced my income that I realized, okay, this is a real like I need to treat this like a real profession to make this go.
Mm. That's something that's like a big progression. When people realize the level of play and all of your competition, the competition that you need to win against most isn't making those same choices. They're not splitting their attention. They're all in. A lot of the
Yeah.
time, they're using all of their time and half of their money to take business from you,
Yeah.
right? That's like the level of play. So it's interesting to see that. When did you kind of start to see glimmers on the lead generation side? Like,
Mm.
how did you find business in the beginning? And when did you start to see like some consistencies or some sparkle on that side?
Yeah. So the way I got in was when Christy Horn, and God bless her, she's an amazing person. She brought me in with a, hey, come, I need help. I'm so busy. And she was investing back at that time. This is 2012 in Trulia, right? Before Zillow bought them. But she had been buying Trulia leads. And back then, if that phone rang, that was somebody who was going to do business because it was like a very early on phase of that. And what she would do, Taylor, is she would take the cherry off the top, and anyone who wouldn't just basically get into a buying mode with her right there, she would hand me over the lead. And
Hmm.
I would work those leads, right? She didn't want to work the leads. She just wanted to go sell real estate. She didn't want to deal with people who weren't ready. So I would nurture and do the things. And what I didn't know at the time, like I was in the beer business. In the beer business, they teach you that sales and marketing are the same exact thing, Taylor.
Mm.
And I didn't know any better. That was the only acumen I had. I didn't go to business school. Again, I went to be a teacher in music at that. So like sales was not in like something that made sense to me.
Okay,
Um,
I want to hit that here because everybody bundles that stuff,
mhm.
right? They're like sales and marketing. Oh yeah, we make products and then we manage our business and sales and marketing. Now, I think that there's a lot of agents that don't understand this. Can you talk to me about your definition of those two and how they work together?
Yeah, and it's not my definition. It is borrowed from my mentors and the people that I really admire. But the best way I've ever heard this described, I think the way that you can describe it to a third grader, which is how I need things described, is that sales and marketing are two distinctly different things. And sales is a conversation for cash. right? In our world, people refer to that as belly to belly, phone to phone, whatever it's going to be now. It's Zoom to Zoom. Like that didn't exist before, but it's a conversation for cash. That's what sales is. They're like, you got the thing. I'm willing to exchange this value for that value. Period. Right? Usually it's in the form of dollars. And again, for years, I thought that that was okay. That's the same thing. But what I didn't recognize, and this is a great phrase, right? Sales is a conversation for cash, but marketing is the thing that gets people to your face, right? It's the thing that brings them to the table so you can have the conversation. And to your point, Taylor, where most people, it's not just agents. I think if we take a step back and unpack almost every industry, most people believe that sales and marketing are the same thing. And they don't know how to distinguish the two. And they believe that marketing is supposed to close business. And that is not marketing's job. Marketing's job is to do one thing and one thing only: get a human being to self identify. That's it. I am either interested in the thing you have or I am not. That is not a green light to sell anything, right? Conversions are on the sales side, right? Click-through rates and marketing dollars and ROAS and all the fancy terms that people use for that. But when you break it down, it's very simple. You got to get people to raise their hand, and then you, in the sales process, have to convert that business.
Okay, so I'm going to give an example and then tell me about one of your early examples. So for me, when I started to see the glimmer in marketing, what I noticed is that we stopped listening to music the same way.
Hmm.
So we used to consume music by album,
Yeah.
and we would all kind of complain about it. Three good songs, the rest were filler, whatever
Yeah.
else we
Yeah.
thought. And then as we started to listen to more music, mobile and electronically, iTunes took us into playlists. And you know what? When you go to real estate, you can kind of like get like maybe the right genre. Like I'm looking for two stories. But man, it would sizzle if there was some playlists,
Yeah.
especially if it was by things you couldn't search on MLS, like which houses have dark cabinets. So I started to make playlists for property, like at that time in the early 2000, or I guess it would be like the 2010s.
Hmm.
It was like those dark cabinets we all love was like the playlist. And
Yep.
then there'd be eight properties in there, and in the mix somewhere there'd be forced registration, and that mechanism gave me leads. And man, did it ever work. Like $7 for 130 some leads or something like that.
Yep. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was just like, oh, and people around me were like, no, 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 this is a whoa. And I'm like, no, no, no. What this means is I haven't found the problem yet. And that was something that I would end up chasing for years,
Yeah.
is that conversion off of that. What was your first kind of like click whir response where it just kind of happens?
Yeah. So, taking the step back of like just prior to that, because I think the bridge to that is important. Again, I was walked into this business from an agent buying leads from a portal site, right? So once I started to convert, immediately for me it was like, okay, I already have a full-time job. I'm growing into that job. I'm now leading a sales team in two organizations for that company. We had four warehouses. I was in charge of the two on the east side of the state on the sales development side. So I didn't have a bunch of extra. I could never go into an office like that. When I interviewed for a brokerage, they were like, well, you got to be in here. I was like, well, I can't work here. Right. I'm going to hold my license here and I'm going to do business. But I can't come in and go through your training program and all that stuff. So like I was just very ignorant to all of that, Taylor. It was just like I was just stubborn enough to get into it. So as soon as I started making a little bit of money, all I did is turn around and start paying those portal sites, right? I was like, well, if she's doing that and
Mm.
it works, I can do it too. So I started paying at that time Zillow acquired Truly, I think, which was right around 2014-ish. Don't, if I'm wrong, forgive me, but right around that time. And then I started investing in it and I started having success. And what I noticed with those guys is they started charging more and more money and the quote unquote lead quality started to go down further and further and further. And I was like, all right, I'm still getting the results. We're winning here, but I'm nowhere near the 7x I was before. Now we're down to 3x or 2.5. And it just started getting really close. And I was like, that's when I really started to recognize, I'm like, there has to be a better way. Right. I'm good with making this agreement where I can pay somebody to do this, but like what I realize is as soon as they stop or get mad at me or I don't have enough money, I'm out of business. And I've
I
got to make a
saw this a
change here.
lot.
Yeah.
Like for my brand, I got into these invitational events when I was like in my third year. And it would be like, here's 185 people that are in the top 2% in the world. We're going to get together and do this. And I walked into that room, and they put people from front to back at these round tables based on production.
Hmm.
And the people at the front were blowing my mind. Like for me, I got into that room for being able to sell like over 100 units in my market in a year. And they got into that room, like some of them had more active listings than my entire year's production. It was just like I sat to this next to this
Oh,
lady from New York, and she was doing cross stitch. We're all like with laptops, paying attention. Like
yeah.
I think the speaker that year was Mel Robbins.
Okay.
Like it was legit. And this lady's doing cross stitch, and I'm like, man, this is so crazy. And then I find out she's one of those crushers because we kind of moved tables throughout the day.
Yep.
And then I hear her on the phone, and she's like, listen, Marty, if that happens one more time, I'm gonna take your sign right off your lawn. I'm like, oh, okay, we found her. Now I
Yep.
know why she's here. But the people at the front of that room, when it was organized by production, were all on Zillow. I went to that room for probably 5 or 6 years every year. And when the water rose, how many of them were no longer qualified for that event,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
room changed dramatically based on what you were just describing.
Yep. Well, and it's, I mean, they've changed a lot. I haven't sent any money over there since I don't think like 2015 or something. But the thing that like I said, the thing I recognized was that I was going to be out of business if I did not take control of the other part. And that's what got me investigating marketing first, right? Like I was too ignorant to even understand that, Taylor. Like I'm not somebody who's going to sit in front of you guys and say that like, oh yeah, I just woke up that. No, it wasn't that way for me. Like I need things spelled out. Whenever a coach says, "Hey Juan, that's stupid," that is the most effective tool for me, right?
I like
Like,
coaches that treat me that way as
like,
well,
hey,
right?
hey, dumbass, don't do that again. Okay, okay, heard, got it, right? Like I need that.
Taylor, you're drinking your own Kool-Aid.
Yes.
Don't go that direction anymore.
Because when they patty cake, I push. That's who I am naturally. I'm always like pushing on the walls, like trying to see where it's going to give out, right? Like I'm just very curious by nature. So, I went into this thing, all right, I got to figure it out. And at that point, I started to discover guys who were doing very unique things on Facebook. And one of the very first people that came across my world that changed how I thought and really went into this was Billy Jean. If you guys aren't familiar, is Billy Jean is marketing. He's the guy who lives out in San Diego, California. And the very first thing I think I ever saw from him was like in 2016, and he did this like Willy Wonka video back in 2016, Taylor, on Facebook, and it was like
Hmm.
there was production, but it was an ad, and I'm like, this is fascinating. And all I did was click on one thing, and then the guy followed me around the entire internet for like 3 months until I bought something, and I was like, and I remember when I pulled the trigger, I was like, wait a minute, all right, I don't know this person. I saw one thing. Here I am 3 months later pulling out my credit card.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel those moments like you do. I was like, you got me.
yeah,
Like I actually now feel good about buying your product
yep,
because I want to be sticky like this, and you're showing me the way.
yep. And I didn't know I wanted to be sticky, right? Like he was exposed. It was the whole Steve Jobs thing, right? Like they don't know what they want until you show it to them, right? And they're like, oh, well, there it was. It finally was like, oh, this is done to me on purpose. And I didn't like have this like sky opened up hallelujah chorus moment, but I recognized that this was done on intentionally. I just didn't know how it was done. So, I bought one of his things, and then the next thing I buy a $5,000 course, and I'm flying out to San Diego to learn from this guy. And I got in a room with people like Dennis Yu, who was doing ads for MGM Grand and Tony Robbins, and like they're speaking a language I am not even qualified to understand, right? But what I knew was I was in a room full of people that were doing things on purpose that I thought I was in control of. And
Mm.
immediately I was like, I don't know how to do any of that, but I want to know how to do all of that. Because if they're doing that, like they traced back, he showed the entire campaign where Steph Curry, and now I'm dating myself, but I don't know. Do you remember the Steph Curry half court shot that went
Yep.
viral?
Yep.
They sold $3.5 million of jersey sales off of that. I
I'm
thought that
sure.
was viral. They paid for that, and then it went viral.
Mm.
But they could trace back, dude, they pulled up the campaigns, all of the analytics, and they're like, here's the register. Here, and that was the first time I ever saw anybody verify how a human got in front of them and they made a sale.
So that's interesting because we call that jacking. So you news jack, right?
Yep.
You
Uh,
basically play off headlines, and in sports, it's highlight jacking. Yeah.
yep.
It's but that like tie into those two things, it's a really interesting correlation to be aware of.
Right. And
Uh,
and again, I didn't even know how to articulate it at that point.
mhm.
I just knew that like I felt like I felt like I walked into Oz and somebody pulled the curtain back right there. I was like, oh, this is on purpose. None of this is on accident. Right. And as soon as I recognized that, man, it was like I had a fire in my belly. Like I could not ever remember. It was like the first time when I put a guitar in my hand. And I love music. And I remember the freedom. You know, I'd grown up playing orchestral music, and I was in the mariachi when I was a child. But like the freedom of no one telling me how to play the guitar, I just got to play it. And I
Ooh.
remember being on fire in my belly and going, okay, I want to do this. Just like that thing you were talking about, the lion. Like, I'm like, I am going to learn how to do this. And that was the moment for me. And the irony, dude, that people in that room, Robin Alex, the founder of Go High Level, we were sitting at breakfast the next day nursing a hangover. It was just the weirdest thing. Like the people in that space who are now very big names in marketing and technology, it was great to be around that community, but they really got me on fire there. And then that led me to Russell Brunson's world. And since 2017, I've been coaching with Russell, and in some way, shape, or form, I bought all of his stuff and adjacent communities, and dude, it's just been a thing for me. I love ultimately, Taylor, the thing that I love about any business, but especially real estate, I just love getting people to raise their hand, man. I love knowing that no matter what, if real estate closed down tomorrow, if the world said no more of that, like the skill set that I have learned and applied and grown will apply to anything,
And
right?
that's actually the funny thing is that this is at a very high level, meaning that we could take a two by four and lay it on the ground. Everybody can do it. We put it between two ladders. We're probably going to rule out 8 out of 10 people from doing that. We put
Yeah.
it between two buildings. Same activity. Who's going now? 1 out of 1,000? 1 out of 10,000? Only under a situation where the reward would be related to the risk. And real estate marketing isn't the shallow end.
Yeah.
It is the deep end. There's billionaires that cruise in these waters. You got to stay away from the bottom of the funnel. You got to play in the area that's like the right weight class for you. There's all of these different lessons. And a lot of people are literally just feeding the funnel. They're putting their money in and they're developing momentum of interest, but there's so few of us harvesting it.
Yeah. Well, most of the competition, is it fair to say? Let me rather than giving something. Taylor, isn't it fair to say that most people spend their money at the bottom of the funnel, but don't have the acumen to convert it there?
And the likelihood that you would be successful there against the largest entities that can pay to play at that level and have experts doing it full time, it's literally like throwing rocks at a train.
Yes. Yeah. And that's something that I think a lot of us make a mistake with earlier. And that's just part of it can be part of the learning process. If I can impart anything on anybody is like take the lessons and not the scars, right? It's one of Hermosi's quotes and I love it. And it's true. Like, most amateurs focus on the bottom of the funnel. And I did too. That's what Zillow is, right? That's what portal sites are. And I'm not, listen, their business model works. Those guys produce revenue. They don't produce profit, but they're buying everything. So there's a whole nother situation there, right? But the reality is you cannot outflank them dollar per dollar. I can't outflank them. No one in our marketplace can do that, right?
So
So,
if you're wondering if you're at the bottom of the funnel, we're going to talk about hand raisers. It's a language we both use. And
yeah,
the question that you're asking at the bottom of the funnel is who wants to buy a house right now? Who wants to sell a house right now? To get those hands to raise, it's likely that you have to have a larger budget than you do. All right. So you can ride on the back of somebody like Zillow and slowly they'll turn up the heat because they know you can't play there. But instead, what so many other people are doing is saying a question that's like, Who's thinking about buying or selling in the next 90 days,
Yep.
in the next 180 days, in the next 2 years? And then using effective marketing to travel with them down the funnel because you can get them out of the flow, but if they hit the bottom of the funnel, your probability is very low. It's casino odds.
Right. Competition is extremely high. You're playing with sharks at that point, people that are skilled up, right? That can, there's a lot of people that can beat me in a listing appointment or maybe even a buyer consultation, and that's fine, right? But the best way to win there is not to have to play, right?
And also, there are ways to essentially hack the funnel.
Right.
So, one of the ways that we do it in real estate is property. So, the reason that I believe that property is a funnel hack is because of our psychology around shelter.
Hmm.
It is a base human need, right? And we're friggin' interested. Man, we just want to like, oh, look at their kitchen and like, oh, these people live like that and we live like this and these other people live like this. That's super interesting. Most people, once they've lived in their house for a year, I think the conversation about moving is probably bubbling at a 6 or 7 out of 10, even
Yep.
after 1 year.
Yeah.
And if her sister just bought a house, the likelihood it just bubbles from 7 to 10 that weekend, pretty high.
Yep. Well, you go on vacation. You jump into Zillow right away. And you're like, oh, I'd like to buy a place here, right? Like, because you're all fired up. You know, when damn well you're not moving there anyways.
So you can see where all of these like opportunities are kind of bubbling up, right?
Mm.
Like they come over here, they come over there, and then you position yourself. I've seen lots of positions from you, meaning like I remember one specifically where you were using a sign on the road,
Yeah.
right? Can you tell us about what you were trying to accomplish with hand raising there? Like, were you trying to get people to watch more of your stuff? Was this to sell future content and hang people on? Was it actually to get people to call you right now?
Yeah.
What was
So,
the, tell us what it was and
oh, that's
then how
great.
it worked.
Yeah, you don't have the photo, but this was 2021, I think, or 20, somewhere around there. This is still in the heat of COVID. That's what I want everybody to know ultimately. And I was reading Bill Glazer's book at the time, um, Outstanding Marketing, or what, I can't remember the name of the title, Taylor, forgive me, but it's one of Glazer's book. And like the thing that Bill Glazer does, he's the coming from an entirely different angle guy, right? Just like gonna stop the scroll, like, and they weren't even playing in that world, but I just remember seeing one of his campaigns, and I was like, oh, that's really smart. Just like getting out there and making yourself known. And what I recognized is I was in a market where I hadn't even started selling yet. The thing you asked about Florida earlier, I had moved to Florida in 2017. I didn't start selling real estate in Florida till 2020. And
Wow.
the reason that didn't happen is because I still have a team back home in Metro Detroit. I was selling from a distance for 3 years. I didn't walk into a house for 3 years. I listed all my homes up in Metro Detroit, never walked into a single one of them. They were all done through Zoom calls. I didn't know that was going to be very important in a few years. It was just by out of necessity, and I had built a
Nice
business,
toolkit.
right?
Yeah, you had a COVID toolkit going into COVID.
Crazy, right? So, but what happened is Michigan was one of those states that was deemed non-essential. So up there, there's a lot of municipalities that have to sign off on certificate of occupancy. So getting a transaction done is not really an option if you don't have C of Os and if municipalities aren't working. So there was a 93-day stretch where we didn't have a single dollar coming to my house, right?
Detroit sounds like the saddest real estate story in the history of life,
It's a
right?
wonderful place, dude. So
Like they damn
let
near
me
went
give you some.
bankrupt a couple of times.
Yeah. But this is why I'm living in Florida, right? So I'm living 1,200 miles away from my market. The market is shut down. I've had my license since the day we moved. I just have not joined a board, had no interest in selling. I was trying to be retired, even though I was not financially there, right? But I was doing a good job of poking at it,
And
right?
you do a good job of growing into things,
Well,
right?
necessity.
You're like buying these big sweaters and just hoping.
Yes, that has been a lot of the path there. But so I went, and the wife's looking at me like, dude, you better figure this out. So I did what I knew to do. I went, and you asked earlier too, like Facebook was where I changed all that off of Zillow. When I went and learned from Billy, he taught me about video. Then I went and connected with other coaches and they taught me more about video. And then we're doing video ad campaigns and laddering campaigns and all this other stuff. And this was back in the heyday when I could target people exactly how much money they made. Did they have kids? What was their income? Do they own a home? And like, dude, we were cranking down through that. And my business had grown. So this is how I was doing this. But yeah, so we got shut down and she was like, well, you got to do something. I was like, all right, well, I need to make a splash if I'm going to get this up. And Taylor, that was more about proving to me that I had what it took again. I had already built a business, but I was like, you know what? I need to go and implement the strategies that I know will work and do this. So I started a Facebook page on whatever date. I think it was August 21st or something. I don't know. Started running ads, had a client and a closing within the first 30 days. And then I went and stood out on this corner because I was like, all right, it's time to make it known. So the sign said, "We'll work for listings," right? Not homeless, just ready to sell your house or something. And it was right around St. Pat's Day. So I gave away a St. Pat's scratch off with my business card stapled to the back. Right. And this is in the heat of COVID. Dude, people were sitting at the stoplights with masks on in their car. Right. Now I know, I know. And I'm standing on the corner like this Yahoo, right? And everybody's looking around like they're like, yeah, this is Florida, but people still thought I had lost my mind, right? I'm trying to put cards in people's, they're like rolling their window down this much and like, but people were getting kicks out of it, right? So what ended up happening was people started taking photos, they started tagging me in it, and then what it did was it gave me the confidence. Not a single phone call came from that, but it gave me the confidence that, hey, you know the things. This is not a market that you have any people that you know here, but you're going to go out and do this thing to win. And that was really, it was a confidence thing for me. If I was hoping to get a listing, of course, but I did not believe that was going to happen. But I
So
needed to
this
get
was
out there
like
and do
an
something.
early iteration of Juan learning to get attention.
Yes. The best way, if you want to describe it that way, that's a great way to describe it. And proving to myself I wasn't afraid of it,
Fantastic. So
right?
then you started to get out there in these different ways, like video, and over time you crafted that, right?
Mhm.
Like now I think your YouTube's over 20,000 per
Somewhere around there.
followers.
We're right around
Yeah.
there.
So you have really like tied this together. I want to go there um, with video. I know you spent time with Evan Carmichael. I know you spent time with some other people that are outside of real estate that do YouTube for YouTube's sake,
Yeah.
right? I want to hear your thoughts on that group, like meaning that some people go there and they learn influencer type stuff, but it doesn't take effect in real estate, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you kind of take a look? Because what I believe is there are agents that are shooting video to sell real estate,
Hmm.
and then there are agents that are selling real estate to shoot video.
Hmm.
And I'm afraid that too many people fall into that bottom category
Okay. That
where
makes sense.
they like they're doing it wrong. You monetize the video by selling real estate,
Correct.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And these other people, they're making these great videos, and it's like, how do you measure success? Because no one is calling you.
That ultimately is the biggest thing, right? So for me, and I'll break this down simply because I'm with you on this, Taylor, and I also believe that this is the next evolution of content, period. Right? Like there's so much disruption going on with AI, and I don't even know if we have time to get into that. So I don't know that that's relevant, but I'll say this. In real estate, if you're going to monetize off the transaction, this is where we need to get to, right? If you're going to monetize off the transaction, chasing views is the most dangerous thing you can do because it is going to fake you out. It is like the scale when you're genuinely working out for growth or strength, right? Because I don't know about you guys. I've been through phases of gaining and losing weight through my entire life. And what I know is the inches usually show up on the mirror before the weight shows up on the scale when I'm trying to grow. Okay. I mean, like strength wise, we put muscle on or whatever. I'm 47 now, so it's not as easy, right? But when I was a young man, I always noticed that first. I would look different in the mirror before it really reflected on the scale. And unfortunately, views for real estate are nothing more than a vanity metric for the most part. And now subscribers are even becoming that. You mentioned my subscriber count. Honestly, that doesn't matter anymore. Subscribers as a whole are less and less valuable because of the TikTokification of media, period.
Because the when we measure attention now, we're not measuring it in subscribers.
Correct. We're
Because we
measuring
find
value
that
delivered.
people don't even go to the for you, like they don't even go to the following page of TikTok. They stay
Correct.
on the for you page.
Yep.
And so hot matters more than loyalty to some effect.
Absolutely. And I've got plenty of creators that I follow that I adore, right? So YouTube as a specific example, Peter McKinnon is a great example of that. Peter McKinnon is a photographer and a videographer, right? He's built his whole brand out of YouTube, lives in Toronto. And it to me is one I admire Peter. I love his work. I love how he approaches the business. He's amazing. Yeah, I haven't subscribed to Peter. I never go to the left column inside of my YouTube. I open up my iPad and whatever's on my homepage is what I'm going to watch
Hmm.
somewhere in there, unless unless I'm in research mode. Which
And that's
yeah,
important because what if I'm hearing you right, you now know that they've got it good enough that the algorithm is the audience,
yes,
right?
yep,
So before we used to try to play around the algorithm. And in the beginning the algorithm was janky and really just trying to play us until they realized that the more they made it genuine, the better it would function.
yeah,
So the reason that everybody likes the TikTok one is because it feels good.
right.
So being that that's the case, now when you look at that in reverse, how are you getting onto the home pages of the people that you want to see your content? Like, how do you see that?
So it all starts with them. Okay, so what I've learned over time, and I think we're up to like 300 videos. Don't quote me on the number. You guys, you I check it out later, but it's a lot. We've done 300 or 400 YouTube videos. It's been a ton. At first, I did what I think everybody else is going to do, Taylor, which is like make the video that I think that they want to see, right?
That's a step beyond everybody else. Everybody
Well,
else is making the video that they want to see.
well, that's
And
that.
now
That's
Yuan's gone into this new area where he's making video for his clients. That's fantastic.
well, at least what I thought that they wanted. There's the distinguishment there, and I'm sharing this with you guys because it is one step above, but it's still the wrong step.
Hmm.
Right. And like that's where I was, but I didn't know it. And part of this was just me finding my voice too, Taylor, not understanding like I had been on video since 2017, but I wasn't doing it on purpose. I was just doing what everybody else did. Like, hey, turn on record button, talk, get some things out. And I was finding my way. But when I jumped on YouTube, I had intent. Right. And back then it was much more SEO based. Now it still is. That's the thing I love about YouTube. It is very search based. You can win two ways there, not just one. Right. And I knew that. So I was making the videos that I knew SEO was looking for, which I treated like SEO. But I was taught a lesson not too long ago. Said whenever you start to use the word algorithm, replace it with people.
Hmm.
And if you think of it that way, you'll change how you start to structure your content. And the big shift for us, the aha moment, if you will, Taylor, is when I moved from making a video for many to a video for one.
Ooh, this is sizzling. Keep going.
So for when I sit down now and our pre-production meetings and our content team, we are making a video for one. Yes, we want to be broad enough to make sure that the new person, right, is getting value out of that video because what I know is the subscriber count doesn't matter nearly as much. Now, how does Juan know that? Because I look at the data,
So how
right?
do you talk to new people? How do you treat them differently?
Well, you
Is it
you
just like they
treat
came to your restaurant?
yes, exactly. So what we do that I think is different than a lot of people do when it comes to real estate, and you made a point about the house and the product, right? We make videos that are lifestyle focused, that happen to include real estate. And the reason for that is because going back to psychology, you said the hierarchy of needs, right? People have a need for safety, security, food, right? Those things. But once those basic needs are met, now they start looking for the things that are most important next. And those things are typically communal, right? What is my communal experience going to be? And I learned this as a buyer's agent back in 2015. It didn't matter. You could hand somebody 3 or 5 million bucks and have them design their dream home. But if they put it in the wrong community, they'll hate it.
Totally.
They'll hate it. And
Yeah.
people think that the
Houses are
house,
built for people too, just like people are the algorithm.
exactly. But it's the community that makes it feel that way, right? You could have the perfectly designed house that he and she designed on the perfect plot of land. But as soon as you step off of that property and now you have to engage with the public, if it's not in alignment with what you believe that you want, it is wrong and you will
Yeah.
sell that house.
If you're
right?
trying to sell people burgers that want tacos,
That's right.
you're going to run into trouble.
That's right. So what we started doing was making videos, lifestyle intentional, pulling real estate into it, informational there, but more about the community. And that is the distinguishable difference. It allows me to operate more as a person as opposed to a salesperson trying to sell a product. And that transparency and authenticity, knowing that I'm talking to the mom who wants to relocate or the dad who wants to relocate. Why do I say mom or dad? Because I'm a husband. I have 3 kids. That's who I am. If I start talking about other things, I'm out of my zone of genius because that's all I do. I live that life. So as I'm talking about how that you and your family would live in this, and how do I know that? Here's the story. Well, this is what me and my family do. And like that was the thing when I started to recognize that people started raising their hand. And not only did they start raising their hand, Taylor, they started jumping in my calendar. And that was the big aha moment for me when we made that shift. The very first time that I had someone go into my calendar without any contact, schedule a time to meet with me, hire me to help them purchase a home, and then execute, it was after that, it was no looking back. I only knew one way.
Hmm. So as soon as you saw that click where you offered the click and automatically they respond in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
Then it was about how can I replicate this and where can I use this same language in other places or the same method of communication? So now I see that you have this affinity for YouTube, but there's a lot of agents that don't have YouTubes. Like, why is everybody not doing it?
I don't know. It's I think that a lot of people believe there's a giant barrier of entry. It's a false belief, honestly, and I had it too. In all fairness, again, I didn't turn my YouTube channel on and we had 20,000 subscribers. And again, I just told you that's not the most important thing. I don't think we closed a deal until about 300 subscribers. This is 5 months. So and I'm going to share this with you. And I know this is the thing that scares people, but again, I did it the wrong way. I know exactly how to do it now. Taylor, I could go anywhere on this planet and do the same thing again in months. I
Incredible.
know it, right? But the thing that most people get anxious about is we believe that you need this big fancy. Yeah, I got a nice studio now, but we didn't start here. If you go back and look at my original videos, I had a practical light behind me like that on my very first video, Taylor. It was off the entire time. I was a clown. I had no idea. Right. 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 It was fuzzy. It didn't look great. The audio sounded terrible. Like I was just doing a thing, trying to figure it out.
My
And
first videos looked like crime scenes.
there you
Like
go.
they literally looked like you could chalk outline the body on the floor behind me.
Yeah. And they were just bad. And
They're all
like that's
dark.
we're so worried about perfection, and what people are terrified of what to say rather than just saying what's on their heart or on their mind and like helping people understand that you're a person. That's what people want. They want people. They don't want salespeople. They want people. Just like they don't actually want a house. If you think that they want a house, this is why you're struggling. They don't want a house. They want to live in the ideal community that matches their ideal lifestyle. And whenever you fix that problem, you are the solution. And that is where you want to position yourself in all marketing, not just YouTube, not TikTok. This is email, postcards, all the thing, right? As soon as you can show people the life that they want and you can articulate it as good or better than they can, they only have one choice. That's to raise their hand and choose you. And it is so much fun when you get to business that is like that, right? And man, the quality, right? I love the podcast, the lead your shit. There is the reason you use the title is because it's true. Things are only funny when it's true, right? There has to be truth in humor, otherwise it's not funny. So there is some truth to that, but usually it's because we don't know how to qualify it, so we don't understand how to build a bridge in
We
between.
think it's an external exclamation.
There you
The
go.
leads are shit, but it's
Yeah,
actually an internal exclamation,
very much so.
right?
Right? Because all of it
The
works.
leads are shit to me.
Yes. And there now that is dude, that's so wise. Right. So like if you guys are watching this man is like I'm an admirer of Taylor because he's very well rounded and also very introspective. It's hard when you're moving a million miles a minute to slow down and engage right? With things that you may have already experienced. And I know, being a fellow ADHDer, and a very project-based, task-driven person, that it is not that I don't value people. It's just that I am so focused on the thing that I can't see how it affects other people at that time, right? And I didn't do it on purpose, but people receive that in unique ways sometimes, right, Taylor? They're like offended or hurt, and like that was not the intention. We were this close to finishing it, so that's all I could think about, right?
Hmm.
And I
Yeah,
know that can
the
be hard.
object permanence is slippery, and that applies to people too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. When you forecast forward now, when you say like what is Juan working on now? When you take a look at like the things you'd want to accomplish in the next 6 months, some of them could be like razor sharp, like the really thin margins. Like I want all of my videos to have this type of format or to make sure that I don't miss this thing I've been working on, or wide angle. Where does your head go?
So, I is it okay if I give you two? Because I'll go to the business and the team. So I am working my way out of production entirely. We're pretty close to that, and I don't say that to the audience. So you guys, I know people feel a certain way about this, but what I've recognized is I have a higher calling, to serve other people in my organization over myself. Okay, so what does that mean? Honestly, I would make the most amount of money being a solo agent. There's no doubt about that. I know that that's true, right? But I'm not fulfilled that way. We started the entire conversation about, this call to contribution. And we're really highly focused on taking our agents to a level that they didn't believe was possible. And last year I got a taste of that, and it was one of the most liberating things in the world to help somebody have those kind of accomplishments that they didn't believe was possible. And it got me just even more fired up about it. So what I know is, for every house that I show or every listing appointment that I go on, it is costing them opportunities. We are at that point in our business. So we have 4 agents here in Tampa. We have 2 agents back home in Detroit. My partner's there. And our team is growing. We've had the best year we've ever had the last 2 years in an economy that stunk. And that's not because of us. That's because the collective genius that we've surrounded ourselves with and our stubbornness and willingness to do the work. I know that's true, right? But we want to grow, and I don't get hung up on the financial numbers. Yes, we want to, double our sales volume this year, but that's not because of me. It's because of the goals the team set, right? They got us to those numbers. It wasn't like we didn't walk in the room with like, "Hey, we're going to this." We
Yeah,
sat
you
down
guys
with
need
all
to
of
produce.
them. Yeah,
These are your
yeah, we sat
all
down with
the
all of them. They're
quotas.
like, "Hey, here's where we want to be." Okay, based on what you guys said, here's what we're trying to do. But what that means is they need more of me doing things like this, right?
And
So
also, if we were to take a look at you staying in your lane, like being the leader of a community and marketing is the lane you've made yourself.
correct. It's all business development at this point,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yep. Business development and management. And most of the people in the market need that puzzle piece because they are salespeople.
yeah.
That's how they see real estate. When they get in here and realize that you have to lead generate and run a business, that's huge news to them.
Yeah.
Normally after they got their license and sometimes years into doing this.
Yep. And I think 4 or 5 closings so far this year have already been referral from other agents from the communities that we've been developing. Right.
Hmm.
So like that's a perfect example of that. And I'm not servicing that business. I'm handing it over to my agents so they can go out and win in real estate. So that is our primary focus internally. Externally, this calling to contribution is not slowing down either. I have been asked a lot of times to go out and teach the things that I know. I'm not a good gatekeeper, um, but by nature, because I want people to win. So I want to grow this component. Like you asked the question earlier, why everybody isn't on YouTube. It's just because they don't see the path. They don't know how easy it actually is to do the thing and to do it the right way. And my passion is going to be to educate those people, if they want, right? So we already have a free community in school where I teach everything we know, right?
I'm going to tell people something that they've been told the opposite of. Go on the internet and meet strangers.
Yeah.
Okay? This is something that your entire life people have been like, don't go and meet strangers on the internet. No, 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 no. Go on the internet and meet strangers. Why one is on YouTube is because YouTube is 100% outreach. Almost all the other platforms are a nurture outreach combo or nurture alone.
Mhm.
Like Facebook, predominantly, if you have an individual profile, this is a nurture play. You're talking to your sphere and the people that know them, right?
Right.
Maybe you can game out into some outreach when you talk about groups and things like that. But then when you're on Instagram, when you post, outreach. When you work in stories, nurture. So
Yep.
you've kind of got this combo. For those few realtors that get into Etsy, now you're driving outreach. Etsy is outreach.
Yeah.
And YouTube, the reason everybody's so afraid of it, it is a meritocracy of outreach. It is the one place or one of the fewer places where you don't kind of get the crutch of your network.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
that
it's such a valuable place to play, but people see the barrier to entry of like, well, I don't know anybody on YouTube. Yeah, you do, but they
yeah.
don't hang out the same way. They
Right.
hang out only on what they want to see. It's a collection of this is what we're consuming.
Yep. It is
Hmm.
it is very much I heard the engineers from YouTube at last year's Vid Summit say that YouTube does not push videos, they pull the audience. And I know that's one of those like, well, isn't that the same thing? No, they're not the same thing. They aren't. It's like the old. It's the adage. It's if anybody has ever seen Moneyball, Billy Bean, where he says, I don't need to win, but I hate to lose."
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same thing where like it is that the consumption component of it, right? Like when I'm trying to
If
learn
I've
something.
got that right in the push pull, just make sure I. So imagine somebody crowd surfing, they jump off,
Yep.
and YouTube will either support the video and then the crowd will be there. But if it's something that's like either violating their rules or they know that deteriorates the YouTube experience because it's a janky video, then they will literally pull the audience and you will land on the ground.
Yeah, think that's
Like they're trying to protect their audience from poor content because they would lose them to other platforms.
well, that's definitely part of it. You don't, I mean, from any platform, you don't want to send somebody to another platform. For those watching, if you didn't know that, that is, I usually you have to pay to make that happen at scale anywhere, right? But the Taylor made a really good point. The audience belongs to YouTube, not to you. That's the distinguishment that everybody has to make and understand. That it doesn't belong to us. Now, they allow us access, and as a matter of fact, they want to connect us to more people when it comes to audience. However, it needs to be content that they are going to consume. Now, how does it pull it towards them, Taylor? This is what you're asking. When somebody types in, "How do I move right to Tampa, Florida?" Okay, that's a pull movement. That what the consumer has said is, "I need you to bring this to me." That's not a push, that's a pull. And this is what the distinguishment is, right? And when they arrive there, they're going to make decisions based upon title. It's the packaging. This is what I'm gonna say, right? So title and thumbnail. And this works on every platform, y'all. This is psychology 101. What is attractive to me or what is disrupting my train of thought? That I It's a question that I have to answer. Those are what humans do. Those are the only two things, right? So when you get into that phase, that's what happens there. And then once you consume it and you have proven like this is what it is, now YouTube will continue serving that up as long as they continue consuming it, which is that pull component of it, right? They'll keep putting it on the homepage, and that's where you want to win. I'll wrap this up because I know I can get so deep in the weeds on this. There are specific metrics I'm looking for, and I'll give these to everybody right now because these aren't gate kept. I just want you guys to know. We are shooting for 75% retention in the first 30 seconds. I know if I can do that, first and foremost, I'm going to win. If I have a click through rate, that means if they saw the thumbnail and they decided to click on the video of at least 7%, I know I'm going to win. So if they click at 7%, if I'm getting 75% in the first 30 seconds, I know I'm on a winning path. And if that video goes at least 6 minutes of average view duration, I know that that video is going to be pulled a lot. People are going to watch it. They're going to find my ideal client for that. And ultimately, that is going to lead to appointments. I don't care how many views. Dude, I've got videos, if you go back to the original part of the channel, that still have 200 or 300 views on it, that I can go back and play you the call where the client's like, "I'm calling you because of this video."
Yeah. And that opening is like, hey, we saw you on TV.
Yep.
Like the way that that has a client effect.
every
Well,
time.
I know that Juan's time is valuable. If you're willing to stick around, we're going to do a couple of minutes off the recording, just doing Q&A. We're only going to do it while it's hot. So if you got questions, fire them out. And if you're quiet, we're going to shut this up. But for those people that are tuning into the recording, this is what it's like to join live. You can be part of our Zoom. You can be in the chat where agents often introduce themselves and where they're from. So that way we can get this community to get a little bit more exchange because we're all working on the same thing. I really appreciate Juan Alcala. He is from True Living Group in Tampa, Florida. He is a YouTube content creator. He runs a community for agents. There's lots of ways to connect with Juan. And myself, my name is Taylor Hack. I'm a team leader in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And this is the Leads Are Shit podcast, where we talk about how we can avoid that phrase by adjusting things internally so we don't experience that externally. And this is a real estate magazine podcast. Have a good day. Thanks for coming, Juan.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for hanging.